want to bring it back to what you were saying earlier.
Bring it back.
To the fact that it was magic.
And
to those guys, it was magic.
Yeah. Who could explain it?
No one could explain it. So if you said, I'm a magician, I'm a bread baker, I'm a magician, and then you couldn't produce, you were done.
No, that was it.
Done.
And it was very secretive back then, too.
Do you know another interesting fact? I'm sorry.
Tell me.
I'm so fucking
No,
crazy.
don't be sorry. Yo, you're here to fucking talk.
I'm geeking out right now.
Yo, you're here to geek out.
During the Civil War in our country, there were bread bakers with the troops. And you know what they used to do? They used to get their starter, and they would put it in a canister, and they would sleep with it at night. So it would be the perfect temperature to propagate for the next morning to make bread for the troops.
And do you know how they cook that? Or you don't?
Tell me more.
I don't know. I have no idea.
So my understanding was that it was in a cast iron pot.
Okay. Which existed in the world.
With the coals underneath and coals on top.
Makes perfect sense.
And that's how they baked bread in that era.
That makes perfect fucking sense.
Do we realize the importance of bread bakers in humanity? And now we're looked at.
I think most people do.
They don't, because we take it such for granted. Such for granted. But just stop a second. Just stop. Everybody stop for half a second and say, okay, I need bread. And there's no stores, there's no bakers, right? There's none of that. Modern humanity is non-existent. Stop for half a second. How do you make bread? How do you make bread? Think about it for half a second, the complexity that is involved. We take this art form at so, sorry, I'm getting,
breathing into your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
We take this art form so for granted, and we shouldn't. We need to understand the validity of what we've done for humanity. What we have, the famines that we have saved.
This built humanity.
I'll tell you one more interesting fact. One more interesting fact, okay? You give a person flour and water. They drink the water, they eat the flour. They won't last 3 months. That same human being puts flour and water together, lets it ferment, sticks it in a bake oven, they eat the bread, and they live indefinitely. Something happens in bread breaking.
Right, they're getting their fucking hydration, they're getting their nutrients delivered to them because of the fermentation process and bringing it down. It is miraculous.
It is miraculous.
All right, I could push back on that a little bit, but you're I could, but you're 90% right. The only thing I would push back on is the fact that no matter what socioeconomical status that you had 200 years ago, you had access to this. You didn't.
You did.
No, you didn't.
I will push back on you on that.
Okay. Tell me.
And let me tell you why. For some, it was harder than others, categorically. And I think what you're talking about is refined wheat versus just get wheat and mill it and make some basic bread.
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
So what are you talking about?
So what I'm talking about is the fact that all right, look at before the Industrial Revolution, which didn't hit Italy until well after World War II, until at least Mussolini started it in 1922 because of the war, didn't get very far with it. He was trying to, capture Ethiopia to be like a wheat belt. That didn't work out too well. He had a lot of other things to worry about. And Italy didn't become industrialized in agriculture until really 10 years after World War II. Really, it was 20 years.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time with this
I know it's a hard time.
because my pushback is, let's talk about the Kingdom of Two Sicilies.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about the
I'm
fact
very
that,
familiar with the history
let's
of
talk
it.
about the fact that it was the wealthiest kingdom,
It was.
top 3 in the world.
Right, but who does that benefit back then? Because it's
Well,
not just
benefit-
Italy who's dealing with these problems,
that's-
it's everyone.
Hold on. The fact that-
Everyone, the richest countries are cauldron cooking back then.
Hold
Okay.
on a second. Let's back up for half a second.
Okay.
The Kingdom of Two Sicilies was so prevalent that when the French had the revolution, all of their master chefs immigrated to southern Italy.
Yeah.
So much so that the word for master chef for southern Italy became Monzú, which is derived from the word monsieur. That's where the word comes from. Let's move on. Pasta, pizza, right? Bread at high level, all developed in the Kingdom of Two Sicilies. right?
Correct.
With Naples as its capital.
Correct.
They weren't in an impoverished state. At the time, the kingdom was the third wealthiest kingdom in the world,
Yes.
with art and science and technology
Yeah,
beyond
but
anything
it
that
wasn't
happens.
a
Until the
egalitarian
Piemonteses.
society.
It wasn't a what?
It that only benefited like the top 1% who
It
were
was
the rulers
aristocrat-
and 5% who
it
worked
wa-
for the rulers.
It was aristocratic, a political system that I do not condone and do not believe in.
But all I'm saying
100%.
is this idea of like this peasant cuisine in the kingdom of two Sicilies.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you there.
95% of the
cuisine.
95% of the population was subsistence living. You're telling me French chefs fleeing France were working for peasants?
You are absolutely correct.
No.
That didn't
and there
happen.
wasn't no such thing as restaurants back then. In the way that we understand
that
them
is
today.
correct. I agree with you.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree with you 100%.
The
Peasant
cuisine evolved
Peop-
and persisted, but in the ruling classes, just like everywhere else.
People that think our food is peasant food is uneducated.